You could start, right, Nikita?
Yeah, we'll just wait for a minute and then we'll get started. Just waiting for more people to join.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Nikita Doshi. I'm part of the executive committee of NHRD Bangalore. Been associated with NHRD now for 4 years and also work in Publicis Sapient in their learning team. On behalf of everyone in the core team, I welcome you all to Mind Matters Day 4. It's a movement to promote mental health awareness, which is increasingly becoming a cause of concern in today's times due to low awareness, due to stigma associated with it, and also lack of infrastructure and experts. To talk to you a little bit about NHRD, NHRD is a non-profit organization focused on promoting development amongst HR professionals. We have about 13,000 members across 30 chapters, and we've been there for over 3 decades now. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing a lot on mental well-being. Over 110 plus organizations signed up for the Mind Matters movement. And each of these organizations have been given a toolkit and a playbook which they can socialize with their employees to promote mental health awareness. We had a very successful day 1, day 2, and day 3. We had a footfall over 2,000 people across multiple sessions. We had some basic awareness sessions, we had some deep dive sessions, and also we had some stories by people who actually overcame mental health challenges. And what struck me from all these sessions was that there's a lot of onus on people, on corporates, and also on leaders to promote a culture of mental health well-being. And how can leaders walk the talk? So today we have a very eminent panel talking about mental health best practices in their organizations. We have Indrajit Singh Gupta, who would be moderating the session. We have Sunita Cherian, Tarun Verma, and Padmaja Alagnathan for this panel conversation. All lines would be muted for this entire session. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to type it in the questions window, and we will pick it up at the end of the session. Do share your experience tagging us. We are active on social media, so do tag us. And we have a hashtag as well, NHRDN Mind Matters. Do share your experience with us. Towards the end, we'll also have a feedback form, which will be posted on the chat window, and do fill that up. Would encourage all of you to become mental health allies and to join this movement of ours. To proceed with the panel, I would now like to introduce Indrajit Singh Gupta, who is the moderator for today's session. Indrajit is the Executive Director and CHRO at Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages Private Limited. Over 25 years of experience as HR leader across various industries such as FMCG, healthcare, R&D, technology, etc. He's an avid reader, film buff, traveler, loves cycling, loves driving, storyteller, and multiple other interests too. With that, I would now like to invite Indrajit to carry forward the panel. Over to you, Indrajit.
Thank you, Nikita, and thank you very much to the National HRD Network. Delighted to all of us. We are delighted to be part of Mind Matters. It's a very, very important topic for all of us. And I have three of my very eminent colleagues with me who will be sharing their insights as well. The intent is to get talking about a subject that usually is under the table, as we always talk about hide and seek. There is more seeking that we have to do and less hiding to do, and my colleagues will help with that. uh, this is one of those very, very critical issues that is also new to many of us in the leadership roles, including in human resources. And we are also in this whole journey about learning from one another. So let me first start introducing my panel members, talk a little bit about the topic, and then get started. So first, let me start with Sunita Cherian. Sunita is the Chief Culture Officer of Wipro. She also leads corporate HR in Wipro. She has over 20 years of experience, has had multiple leadership roles, has also been the global rewards leader for Wipro in the past, and brings to the table a whole bunch of experiences that we'll be very fortunate to learn from. I will then introduce my next panelist, which is Padmaja. Padmaja Alaganathan is the Chief People Officer at PwC India. She has held different leadership roles in PwC Consulting in India, as well as with Mercer and A.F. Ferguson in the past. She's a member of CII's National HR Committee. She's also a member of the Skill Development Committee. And has been an active member of PwC's Global Diversity and Inclusion Council as well. She is a founding partner of Social Venture Partners in Bangalore, which is an organization focused on making a difference on social issues at the lowest local levels. She enjoys trekking and has had multiple treks in the past, largely in the Himalayas, Nepal, and Bhutan. And of course, she has a memorable trip to talk about of Iceland. Hopefully, she's going to get another chance to go there again. Padmaja is a graduate from the University of Madras and is a postgraduate from IIM Calcutta. Welcome, Padmaja, as well. And Tarun, let me introduce you. Tarun is the HR head for the Shell Group of companies in India, member of the board, the CSR committee, the advisory board for Shell E4 Startup Hub. He has served across FMCG, telecom over the last 21 years. He's a graduate in mechanical engineering and also a postgraduate from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He's passionate about D&I, as he describes it, as doable as well as intriguing at the same time. And I think it is one of those topics for sure. He loves to travel, loves his food, and in the current situation of COVID, is keenly exploring the deepest corners of every part of his house. So welcome, Sunita, welcome, Padmaja, welcome, Tarun. It's a great honor for me to have all of you together and kick this off. In a country which has about 150 million cases of mental illness, literally looks like 10% of the population has some form of mental illness. In a country where simply talking about mental illness is a taboo, forget about treatment. We probably have less than 5,000 officially registered psychiatrists. Uh, for a comparison, in the US, it would be 30,000 for a much smaller population. So that's the kind of struggle that is available on the ground for us to deal with. And then, when you think about, and I grew up with a very simple story of having watched someone uh, who was called names because the individual otherwise seemed very normal, but you had stories about the person being told to you about how this person is mentally not okay. It is not good to, even communicate with the person. And as a kid, I have never seen that individual ever misbehave with me. He was always nice, kind, and everything. But somehow the rest of the community around didn't seem to like this person one bit, treated him as a very separate entity, treated the family very separately. And long after, when I was in college, I got to know he had committed suicide. And it hasn't left me, as I worked across different roles in my professional career, that these are real challenges with very normal people, and it can happen to anyone. And it is more important to figure out how to deal with empathy and treat individuals like these than sort of shun them away. And I think from a COVID standpoint, probably it's one of the blessings that I feel out of COVID, for all the negative things that it has done. The one positive thing is it has brought so much of focus on mental health and well-being than we have ever seen before. So let me start with my first question to each one of you, and I'll start with you, Sunita. Anything, in your personal life or professional life that kind of motivated you to think about this, as something that you now start to feel very passionate about?
Thanks, Indrajit. Thanks for this opportunity to NHRD to be here speaking to all of you. To your question, Indrajit, I heard the story that you grew up with. However, I must say that in my growing years, while one could see around, people who were going through difficulties as they were perhaps adjusting to the pangs of growing up, uh, it was not unheard of that somebody would try to inflict pain upon themselves as they tried to cope. But thankfully, I did not personally know of people who harmed themselves beyond repair. I guess they just found their own ways to move on. And when I joined Wipro, which is 24 years ago, I realized that there was already a recognition that mental health is very important. It's a very important aspect of one's health, and that requires attention. So I guess I'm fortunate because I stepped into a culture where the thinking was already set along a good path. So I just imbibed that, and my contributions have only been to help it evolve from there.
Thank you, Sunita. Tarun, can I go to you with the same question?
Sure, Inder. Thank you. I probably have to firstly just check on everyone who's joining us. This is close to lunchtime, so quick safety check that you're not cutting vegetables or you've got stuff on a stove. Huh? This is the time when everyone's doing that. For me, the lesson has been around the cost of a distracted mind, colleagues, and I'm so grateful that NHRD and all of us have come together on this very, very important topic. One instance that I want to share is one which stays with me. A colleague whose employment was terminated, and a few days after that, whatever is the reason, this person calls me up, and usually one would have said, call up so and so team member, use EAP, whatever is the mechanism that you have, give a very policy answer to it. But I picked the call, I spoke to the person, and I don't know what in me kind of just broke, and I said, hold on. I called up one of our EAP counselors, and I said, can you please have a word with this person? And I was shocked when the counselor spoke back to me after 6 hours and said this person had tendencies for self-harm. This person could not face one's family, one's spouse and kids because the shame of why did I get terminated? And this just completely made me really relook some of my weak signals, saying we have signals all around us in our function. And unfortunately, I think, and I feel sorry for having done this in my past. I had to recalibrate my own orientation towards saying, do we always look at only the hypos and high performers and talent and forget the fact that as HR, we are supposed to be there for everybody. We're there for all employees, not just a top 20%. And managing just the cream alone may not be enough because the cream is only as good as the milk you get, right? And if the milk is split, we all know what will happen. That's where I come from in there.
Okay, thank you, Tarun. Padmaja, let me ask the same thing to you. What has been an inspiration for you, or something that sort of hurt you or impacted you to get on board with this agenda?
Thanks, Indrajit, and morning to everyone. Hope everyone is well and safe. So, after you raised this question, Indrajit, I was actually, thinking about it and saying, is there one incident that I can sort of identify, right? Maybe while growing up, which was a long, long time back, then I'm sure most people on this webinar. Maybe priorities were different. It was a different kind of an economy. And when I thought about why is it that today we have much more focus on this aspect, I think two things stood out for me, Indrajit. One is just that being part of an organization, and when you're on different forums, right? When you're trying to understand concerns or like internal complaints committees, you start realizing that our organizations are actually, in many ways, we are like a melting pot of so many different cultures, values, belief systems, right? And in many ways, that gives you a lot of pride because you believe you're really bringing together different backgrounds. But you also realize that there's so much more of an important role to play to help everybody, to support everyone, assimilate in that, right? Because when you come in with different kinds of expectations, beliefs, it can cause for a lot of stress in the workplace, right? So that was, I think, one thing that through these interactions, I just realized there are so many different starting points that it's really important as an organization to support. And maybe the second thing is just a very personal experience. I mean, seeing children grow up, children of colleagues, friends, just realize also that the world is more complex. There are maybe more choices, with that more pressure that comes in. Therefore, it's important just to make sure that there is the institutional support, helping everyone be open about stresses they are facing, helping everyone say, need help, reach out. It could be to a friend, it could be to a colleague, it could be professional help. So I think it's really a combination of professional and my own experiences, as a parent, seeing children or friends, that really brings it home to me. And I just realized it is so important, and I'm really glad that we're all together discussing this topic today.
Thank you, Padmaja. So let me open this up with some more details. As much as we talk about what's happening in India, what's happening across the world, it's as we are celebrating the mental health week and building awareness around it, we still realize that there are so many companies for various reasons, and of course very, very obvious reasons probably, that there are some companies on board and they're doing something. I would say that we are probably still at the nascent stage, but companies are evolving. Some of them are probably accelerating as well. I think that's a great sign. But we also have a lot of companies that are still not on board. And that was the recent survey that the NHRDN conducted. And it's coming out from all of us who are participants in that survey, that we probably have about 50-60% of companies who are doing something around mental health as a program or as an initiative or even building awareness. But we still have about 30-40% of companies who haven't even started on this journey. And that's starting to ring a lot of alarm bells, that how does it actually work? Because we are not in any kind of a competition that who's first and who's second. The intent is that we don't want to be the last, and I think that's the single big call out for everyone. Now, all of you have launched these initiatives. You have had a lot of work that you've done behind the scenes to make it work. That includes getting your leadership teams on board, just building the whole awareness around it. And oftentimes we realize that when you start something, the whole organization seems to gel around it and push that whole agenda forward, because it can't be just done by a couple of us in HR. So what would you advise the companies that don't have anything with them today to start doing, literally say from today itself? And maybe let me start with you, Sunita.
Well, the best advice I will have is for them to start somewhere. I don't think you need personal examples or experiences to start the journey, because in a lot of times it may be so hidden that you may never experience it itself, right? But that does not mean that that it isn't there. So even if your actions are to help one person, I would say it's worth the while. So get started, and all of you who are there on this call today, you're all part of the HR function, and I think you have the ability to make yourself heard and to influence action in your organization. So my advice would just be, don't hesitate to go right ahead and try and influence a change, because perhaps now is the best time, with the pandemic, like Inda was talking about, a lot of employees are feeling the stress and anxiety. So I would say no better time than now to start.
Thank you, Sunita. Padmaja, what would you advise?
Completely echo everything that Sunita said. Maybe just a couple of things to add. That today, there's so much of support systems which are there, which organizations can leverage on, right? While I think each of us on this call can really do our bit, and we have to step up. There's also so much more which is out there. So leverage forums like NHRD and the kind of content and material that is available at this point of time. But really take advantage of all of that to make a difference in your own organization. Maybe the second one I feel is really important is get your senior leadership's buy-in, right? Get the buy-in. And I feel we should look at this as a part of a holistic wellness. I mean, mental wellness is such an important part of overall holistic wellness. And get your leadership buy-in to drive something. If it's difficult to get started just on mental wellness, try and make it broader, but include mental wellness as an integral part of that, because that's the only way to get the issues.
Sure. Thanks, Padmaja. Tarun, same question to you, but I'll frame it differently and put it more to your specific experiences in a large, very distributed kind of a business, and very, it's very much in the field. And there are many on the call who will have such businesses to manage, where you have a headquarter and all distributed operations across the board. Okay, and some are in really hardship locations as well. So what's been your learning, in this journey that you think you can advise everyone to start adopting? Because it's really, one of those extreme cases as a company of what you could do, and you guys are doing a great job of it.
Yeah, thanks. I'd probably firstly go back to where we currently are, which is, if you look at a business like mine, I mean, I work for Shell. The typical visual you have is of a person wearing an overall, you've got a hard hat, you're on an oil rig, and that's the typical image of a Shell woman or a man who's out there. The first thing is to build awareness, saying, usually when you go out there, you think of safety. It's got a very physical manifestation. It's got the hard hat and the gloves and everything else. Fire is your biggest enemy. What we realize, first of all, is that if you send people out there and their minds are on fire, what is the PPE? What is the safety equipment you have to protect yourself from that? I haven't found one yet, barring leadership, barring team, barring the culture that you create. My advice to all colleagues, and I think it's there in the NHRD LinkedIn Learning as well, and there is Professor Amy Edmondson has done this beautiful piece of work on psychological safety. And I think the first thing that she says is, we are human and humans will make mistakes, and they need the right context, the right kind of environment in which they're allowed to do so. Equally, she talks about speaking up and the value of how one can speak up. But the most important part, and as colleagues just mentioned, is the role of leaders. Because we as HR, as organizations, can create policies and plans and structures and frameworks, but leaders create the right conditions within which people can actually come out and say, listen, I am facing this concern. Will I be judged? Will I be seen as I'm mentally weak? The other part is my own function, my own department, my own colleagues. I had to go back and test, saying, do we understand what is the difference between mental health, mental illness, mental retardation? Have you read the Mental Health Act? Have you read, how do you differentiate between what levels do we have to go back and check on? So my sense is it is going to be quite a journey. We've been on this for quite a few years. And we even did some research, in fact, across Asia to also look at the cultural lens, because in Asia we tend to be a bit more the whole Great Wall effect, that we have to be seen as resilient, we have to be seen as taking stuff on, and therefore when the dam bursts, it bursts. So do we have to wait till that point of time? And that whole human cost that is along with that, I think it's too much for one to bear. So my request again to colleagues is help leaders create the right conditions, enable people to speak up, look for weak signals. Psychological safety is a great resource. Please look it up. The fire outside is fine. We can always extinguish it, but the fire within is something that I get hugely scared by. And the context you shared in a large distributed organization where, especially now in COVID, where I can't even do a handshake with a person. I have to listen to people. I have to hear people, and they're sitting in so many different places. My ears go red every day just trying to listen to the intonation of people's voices. That is where I currently am. So me and my team, we're going through our own journey there. But I think that's what I would leave you with in there. And all those who've joined this, thank you for taking that first step to even join this journey, first of all. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Tarun, thanks. And I can just add up from my own experiences as well. I think that piece around just taking action and sort of not waiting for the perfect answer to come in or the most perfect solution is probably much better. And acting on these signals, as you call it, has been very important. We've also seen a lot of work going on. We've implemented some of that even in Hindustan Coca-Cola beverages. It's been a great time also to use some of the digital tools that is all around now, and many of us in all our companies as well are using them. And it plays a big role in suddenly the physical and the digital coming together, helping generate a lot of information. There are chatbots that are working well. There are apps that are working well, so that it brings more data for everyone to act on. But ultimately, you're right. I mean, and that's what I've heard from all three of you, that ultimately it's about ensuring that there is accountability around it, that we are all working in one direction. It doesn't have to be the most perfect solution, but we continue to be agile as we can and keep on improving step by step as we go along. And it's actually a very long journey. And it just reminds me that even the Mental Health Act in India is very recent. I mean, it is as recent as 2014. And just imagine a country that is more than 70 years as an independent nation having moved this agenda forward. It probably is still not perfect, but it's still right step in the right direction, and hopefully it starts addressing the larger chunk. And especially as we now see that there are so many of our own associates and employees who are moving to working from their hometowns. It also means the family structures change. People go back, start living with their parents again. It's convenient. They're able to spend time with them. But it also is a time when these dynamics will play out very differently. With everyone working from home, adds a lot of stress as well. So it's very good. I think the one big takeaway is really about getting leadership on board and taking action. What's the one thing that each one of you can share about in this journey so far that all of you have gone through? What's the one thing that you can call out as a best practice that you would like maybe all other companies to adopt? It could be simple, it could be complex, it doesn't matter, but something that can be exported very easily for everyone else to adopt. Maybe let me start with Tarun this time.
Yes. Can I go to? Because
Yes.
I think it's very important for looking at the employee base as one large thing. But let me first start with leaders and with us as HR. One of the things that we've begun doing is care for self. And what we're saying is it is not a selfish act. You have to, first of all, be able to be yourself mentally and physically resilient to be able to help others. Yeah, I mean, as the airline industry says, wear your oxygen mask first before you help others, right? I think that applies to all of us, especially at moments like these. So that's my one request to all leaders and all HR folks. Please, care for self is not selfish. The other bit is please enable employees. Don't use just the mechanistic formal ways. If people are not okay, enable platforms and conversations in small groups where they feel safe to come out and share their stories, have discussions, where they're able to come out and present it. Because very often, even when they go back to their families may see it as, what happened to you, what's happened to your, are you not well, etc. And that leaves a very different kind of stigma that people have to then deal with. So can we as organizations, as corporates, take on that responsibility to provide a safe space for someone to come and say, I'm not okay, I need help? That's what I would make a real request on this one, Inder.
So Tarun, maybe just expand a little bit on that. So in your company, for example, what does that forum look like?
So we've got a formal day for Safety Day, for example, once a year. Yeah, so wherein we all the entire organization sits in small circles, and we call them family-sized groups. Yeah, so it's like a joint family. If you have 15 people, you join together, you sit and you sit in a circle so you can see each other. You discuss safety, and what we've picked up this time is talk about the ability to express yourself in a psychologically safe group. Yeah, so imagine a group of 15 people coming together, and the first thing you ask is permission to retain what is being said in this group. Secondly, express the need to maintain resilience and that we will support each other. Thirdly, talk about stories that people are willing to share, and this has led to people coming out and sharing personal stories which have been amazing. Yeah, and just the fact that the safety of that family size group and the ability for one to come and say, I'm not okay and I need some help out here. We then build upon that, which is a larger group, but then we then build upon that with the people who need specific help. And if you need one-to-one help, that's when you bring in counseling and support and more professional help that comes in there. But I think it starts with a conversation in a small, psychologically safe group, first of all.
Okay, thanks, Tarun. Padmaja, what are some of the best practices that you would like to advise the audience?
Thanks, Inder, and thanks, Arun. Tarun, some great stuff and a lot of ideas as you were speaking. I'm trying to think of the one great practice, and I'm just thinking that if I just step back conceptually, how are we really addressing this aspect, right? There is, of course, the employee assistance programs which are there. So at a time like this, we also said we have thrown it open to their families, right? We found that post the pandemic, the usage kind of doubled. And we said, you know what, it's not just for you, it's for family as well. And usage is continuing to be there, which we see it as a good sign. One feedback that we continuously have been getting at this point of time is just about the whole mental stress because of blurring of professional and personal boundaries, right? That's something which I'm sure everyone has heard. So there have been a lot of focus on how to address that, right? Whether it's policy, things like, okay, agree on X number of hours, which is common with the team, the rest of the time is yours, structure the day as you want. That's like a formal policy that has been rolled out, pushed, socialized to everyone, right? Or whether it's saying, things like, okay, these are the hours when you're available, this is no buzz time, this is my time. Each team kind of agree on that and do that. We did this whole thing on, pens down, right? We've done every 2 months. We want to make sure that there is a pens down, because we realize if somebody takes time off, it's not enough, because everybody else may be working and everyone assumes you're not going anywhere, right? It's not like, okay, so-and-so is traveling, they're not available. So we formally done pens down, and we are just keeping that as a protocol so that the whole organization kind of takes a breather and everyone gets time, right, to disconnect. We're doing digital detox. So I think there's one set of initiatives which I believe are really important just to help everyone manage those professional, personal boundaries, because there's a lot of mental stress because of blurring, right? That's, I think, one big aspect. I think the second is building the sense of community, right? That's also really important when you look at the profile of the workforce, which is young. A lot of people are single, who are alone. Maybe some have moved back to parents, and as you said, there could be new adjustments to be made there. So building the sense of community, which goes beyond work, right? So again, back to the whole neurochemistry of your dopamine and oxytocin, and what are all the things as a community you need to do together, whether it's learning new skills, whatever they are yoga or things for children, or whether it is physical fitness. I'm sure many of us have tied up with different fitness chains and things like that, or it's just cultural celebration of festivals together which are driven in the regions. So I think that's the whole second big bucket, building the sense of community, because we really believe that in times like this, the role of the organization as somebody who's helping with the social fabric is very strong. And maybe just briefly, I will also talk in there about the fact that we're also trying to build capability at manager level, because managers are those who really provide, I think we spoke about that earlier as well, who really provide that experience to everyone in the organization, right? So to build capability there, provide that support system, to be available when somebody wants to reach out, speak. I think that's another area that we're trying to focus on. Those are 2-3 things I wanted to call out.
Sure. Thanks, Padmaja. Sunita, what's happening within Wipro, and what are some of the things you can share with us?
Yeah. So I just loved what Tarun spoke about. You know, it reminded me of the circle of trust conversations that we have at Wipro. Exactly the similar protocol that it follows. So I think the overriding goal is essentially to build an inclusive workplace, you know, where everyone feels safe and valued, and to get themselves to be, you know, destigmatize mental health. I think that's the most crucial aspect. One thing which we found really helping is the screeners. You know, so we use screeners for anxiety and depression because it not only makes you more self-aware, it's also kind of useful in highlighting the risks proactively. And of course, the program that we have called Mitra, our in-house trained volunteers for the first level guidance. I think that's been in place for years, and there's that comfort that employees have that going to this group. And of course, if it's something which is beyond them, and of course, as we grew in size, we've obviously strengthened it through the EAP support from trained practitioners. But I think this program, the belief that there is somebody, that there is a go-to person, I think has really helped the way Wipros looked at this entire thing.
Yeah, and probably, you know, one of the summary things that I take away from all the responses you've given, I think this pandemic probably has brought out another important thing, that each one wants to be recognized that they exist, and that's really coming to the fore, that they are all contributing. They're probably contributing much more. Engagement levels have been pretty high. There has been a strong sense around what's going on, and I think we realized a lot of that in another way, is that it is again a form of energy. So it is as much of physical energy, mental energy, and emotional energy that we are trying to build our programs on very similarly. That we feel that if we did not address this, probably that's the next crisis that all of us in HR will have, is to deal with energy at the workplace, where you can no longer see or, you know, physically get involved with supporting anyone because offices are, you know, closed. So that's one major takeaway for me. Let me come back to my final question, and then we'll open it up to the audience for their questions to address. Padmaja, I'll begin with you. But where do you see this whole journey going from here? You know, we have come a certain distance. It needs a scaling up. And let's just take, say, 1 year from now, in October of 2021. What else do you think would have got added on to some of the platforms that you spoke about, or some of the changes that would have probably been done on the policy front in your company?
Right. So interesting point in there, and I sometimes feel that, you know, basically we'll have to go back to so many of the fundamental systems and policies that we have, right, and processes. So as an economy, we've kind of had, you know, a lot of rapid growth. We've had be very aspirational, which is good to do. But I think now it's really time to bring in that whole dialogue that it's okay, right? It's okay if you don't grow at a frenetic pace. It's okay if you don't have, you know, the same kind of growth or hikes as peers do. But just this whole focus on what is it that each one of us really wants. We are valued irrespective of that. So I think getting back to all of our processes and starting to evaluate and say that as organizations, are we driving some of this, right? And where do we find that whole balance between helping all our team members really be strong in terms of mental wellness, and how do we balance that with our corporate objectives? I think that's really the responsibility and the area that I feel all of us need to focus on.
Okay, thanks, Padmaja. Sunita, again, Same question. How do we scale some of these initiatives up?
So I think the important thing in there is to do things right? So, and if you do things right, then in my mind, the scale will happen automatically. Whether it is what you rightly said in terms of leadership support or safe space or support groups, I believe these are all the ecosystem that have grown around any initiative which we've done for the right reasons and in the right manner. So in my mind, scale happens because people recognize that your intent and supporting actions are on a good path. So I guess if one is able to take care of that, then the rest should follow.
Okay, Tarun, your thoughts?
I'd probably say two things again. One is I would imagine more and more visible leadership. I mean, I cannot but say the amount of focus that we have to give on leaders walking the talk and being visible and championing this. We spoke about our DNI networks. I've got many of my country leaders who are champions for each of the networks. So that clearly puts them in that space. But equally, are they passionate about it? Are they walking and hoping that people will come out and share their stories? So that's one part. The other part is when I join some of these small size groups, I now notice that people are feeling open to come out and share stories where they have broken down, stories where they have sought help. And that's when you realize it's not just about bringing a toolkit and saying, let's train them on this. It's about the fact that people are sharing stories, and stories make such a powerful impact. I've had people, in fact, one such discussion, I had someone saying, I didn't feel as safe, but now I'm saying it, I'm gay. Yeah. Now that itself, imagine the amount of trauma that person must have gone through and said, when do I share this? And you can't imagine the amount of relief that was kind of felt in that group when someone said that. So I think all of this, in many ways, it links back to the work that we're all doing on DNI. But don't make it just about process and protocol. Make it really about leadership, and make it really about people feeling safe to come out and talk about stories.
Got it. Okay. Let me put another important piece of this whole puzzle that all of us work with actively, which is the employee assistance programs. Okay. Any one thing that you feel we can continue to keep doing so that folks can keep adopting and using this program, because it doesn't really qualify anyone saying I have a mental illness or not. It really helps in getting some of our stress out. It helps us even get a very neutral coaching from someone who's better equipped than we are to deal with the problem. And it could be with any one of us. It doesn't have to be just mental illness. It just covers everything else. So in your experience, Sunita, what's the one thing that we can do to make the adoption of EAP better?
I think the biggest one over there would be communication. Reinforced through repeated communication, be it in the form of podcasts, videos, articles, blogs, webinars like the ones we're doing, because this has definitely helped raise awareness and create an inclusive culture where there is no stigma attached to sharing your vulnerability. So I think I would say the most important is reinforced communication here.
Okay, Padmaja?
Completely agree. I think it's really about letting everyone in the organization know this is available. Reach out. It is completely, it's anonymous. There is absolutely no judgmental element in no one's going to judge you based on what you say. And it's not even anybody in the organization who's aware of what it is, right? So there's complete anonymity. It's really encouraging people to reach out. If nothing else, it's just talking to somebody. It's just talking. It's getting that support. It's just that feeling that, okay, I was heard, getting professional advice when it is needed. So I think we have to ramp that up, and I hope the offtake will even go up more and more, as there's no stigma around using the.
Tarun, anything around Padmaja's point on removing the stigma of EAP? Anything that has worked very well for you?
Absolutely. I was just going to say that EAP is good, but the term employee assistance seems to feel like you're being assisted, and that to me itself, I have a concern around that. So we put it more under care for self. And we said care for self is not selfish. It's fine. It's okay. But bring families also into it. I think one of the colleagues mentioned that. Bring families into it. It removes and it brings a bit more of a safe space, and it helps eliminate that stigma, which, because we, in any case, right now are blurring the boundary between what's personal, what's work in any case. Yeah. So that's the one thing I would request.
Sure. And to that point, I think it also came out in some of our discussions earlier that when you talk about coaching, it seems to feel much nicer than when we talk about counseling, as an example. And I think this is a very good point to say, care for self is much better than saying employee assistance. That's a good takeaway. All right, so we are pretty much on time. Let me hand over to Nikita, and we probably would have questions from the audience. So Nikita, over to you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for these wonderful insights, and also the role of leaders, managers, our own selves, the community, I think, in creating these safe spaces and also building that psychological safety. We are on time, but I think we can take one question from the audience before we wrap up. And this question is by Sagarika, and she says that at this point in time, while we are all trying to put a lot of effort at workplace, how can we be strong? How can we stay motivated if something goes wrong at workplace? Are there any tips? And I would just want to add to that, what all four of your leaders, what are you doing to stay positive? What are your mantras?
Okay, anybody picks it up then?
I mean, I don't know that I have anything very profound, but maybe one or two things that I make sure I do. I think one is, the whole element of physical fitness in whatever small way, right? I think it's really important, whether it's a 20-minute walk, whether it's just staying active every 1 hour a day. It makes such a big difference. I realized when this whole pandemic started that I was just sitting on my chair and, not moving. And then when you start doing that, you just prioritize that you will do a walk, right? Morning, evening, whenever it is. I think it makes a huge difference. And maybe second is just switching off. It's really important to find that space and just be by yourself, switch off, find that space and time.
Yeah, so I'll probably say, there are a whole lot of these apps which make you really feel like a star. So I belt out songs on Smule, on Star Maker, so that keeps my sanity. And of course, yoga. I think thanks to the pandemic, I've got a lot more drawn towards yoga because it just helps. Like Padmaja said, just getting that into your routine every day, no matter what, completely clears up your mind for the rest of the day.
And I'd probably just add, think about the power of distraction, but think of positive distraction. Pick out one thing that positively distracts you. It ensures that your mind takes off from the whole negative spiral. And if you're if you're a tech geek, I use an app called Dailyo, DAYLIO, which just requires 2 minutes to go every day and put a smiley or a frowny face. And at the end of the week, I can look back and say, how many smileys did I get and why did I get that smiley on that particular day? It makes me feel really good. Yeah.
Maybe one thing, 10 seconds. Sorry, Inder, I was just going to add to what Tarun said. I know we had a program where somebody came and spoke to us, and she spoke of the power of a gratitude journal. I thought I would just add that on to what Tarun said. Sorry.
Going back to doing some writing, which I enjoyed. Of course, you're missing the old, writing habits. So that's been one way of distracting. And I think that the physical fitness part is, I think, very critical. Not that I've been very good at it, but at least you're making that effort whenever you get a chance to go out and be physically fit, because I think that draws a lot of energy and gives you enough to sustain throughout the day and more.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think these were great ideas for all of us to incorporate. And thank you for being role model leaders. I think we need more leaders like you who can create this culture of, mental well-being at workplaces. And thanks, Indrajit, for, moderating this wonderful conversation. On behalf of the entire NHRD team, would like to thank all of you for this wonderful panel conversation. I would encourage all the people to just submit your feedback. I've pasted the link on the chat window. Do register for our other sessions as well. We have one coming up at 12 noon today on mental health awareness. We have a musical mindfulness session at 2:30 today. There is a deep dive panel conversation of 90 minutes today at 4 p.m. on anxiety and depression. And we end the day today at 6:30 with a story by a corporate person on how she overcame her anxiety and her mental health issues. So do sign up for these sessions. I've pasted the link on the chat window. And once again, thanks everyone for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Nikita. Thanks, Inder, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and stay safe, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Nikita.
Bye.